Today, we're going to talk about what is probably the biggest theft ever at a card show. This occurred at the most recent Dallas card show and involves upwards of $2 million USD. These guys were a little bit brazen with how they went ahead and did this theft, and you guys might be a bit shocked at how easy they made it look. So I want to share that with you all today, even if you have already seen this topic, because I want to add my own 2 cents into the conversation. And some of you guys might get annoyed at me for doing that because, you've seen it everywhere. It's been all over social media, but the dealer has basically asked everyone to make content, talk about it, keep it at the forefront because, this is what the hobby is all about, protecting each other and helping each other out. So in the odd instance that some of you guys haven't seen this topic already, I'm happy to sort of bring it to your eyes so you can hopefully share some information if you have any. Now, like I sort of alluded to, this occurred at the most recent Dallas card show, and these guys were a lot more brazen than what you would probably think. And I can show it to you now because the dealer basically has footage and, lists out all the cards involved. Now, this is his post. It is Day Sports Cards. And what was most, interesting about this whole situation so far was how quickly this sort of spread like wildfire. It was sort of everywhere on every piece of social media, getting shares left, right, and center. Basically, everybody, banding together to help this guy out. And the reason being, number one, we're card collectors. We want to help each other out. It's the right thing to do. But this guy and his family, per my understanding, have been around the hobby for a long time. He's been a dealer for a long time, and almost everybody that I've spoken to on the matter has dealt with this guy in some capacity, or bought a card, sold a card, etc. with him. So it hit close to home for a heck of a lot of people, which is, again, why, even though this topic may have been told already, we sort of need to be talking about it consistently to try and keep it front of mind and also share the information as much as possible. Now, what you're sort of seeing on screen are the cards in question, as he does say in his post, with the exception of the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle PSA 4 and the 1960 Mays Bazooka SGC Authentic. All of these cards were taken from us at the Dallas Card Show. I understand the certs aren't easy to make out for all of them, but if you know anything or see these cards for sale, please contact me, please repost, engage, etc. It goes to my point of what I said a little bit earlier. Now, this is quite alarming because, there's avenues that these guys can take to sort of defraud, people and get these things out of the slabs itself. So I'll get to that in a sec, but you can sort of see here, these cards aren't cheap, and this is sort of the lower value of some of these pages. And you can sort of see here, $6,000 for a card, $1,300 for a card, $2,000. You get to the next page, and there's actually some, pretty expensive boys as you step through here. There's a 14K there, 4K. This stuff does add up: 35K, 100K, 40K, 31K, 26K, 90K, etc., etc. This stuff, just keeps going, and it's a heck of a lot of cards. You can sort of see here some Honus Wagners. Again, now you understand where that $2 million, rough estimate has come from. But it's just one of those things when I show you the footage itself, which this guy has also posted, is quite alarming. So these two guys here, I believe, work at the booth. There's another guy over here being talked to, which works at the booth. I think the guy in the lime shirt, I could be wrong, he also works at the booth, but it's the guy over here with the briefcase that has basically gone ahead and done the deed. And what I'm about to show you with the footage is actually quite alarming because it shows that these guys were quite calculated with how they went about the approach, because this guy in the white shirt, I'm fairly certain is in on it based on what you see in this video clip over here. Now, I'll sort of let it play because you'll see, the guys basically, assessing the situation. And you can sort of see there in Day Sports Card post, he talks about this being the best footage he has. Now, you can sort of see there, the guy in the blue shirt, let me come back and play it for you again. But you'll see the guy in the blue shirt, he's sort of coming into the table, he's moving chairs around, just trying to act like he's up to something. He's walking over. This guy's coming around to try and get attention. This guy notices the guy over there. He starts walking towards in that direction. Blue guy decides to bail it. This guy tries to get the attention of one of the employees or one of the people, I guess, maybe working at the table. I can't exactly recall. And then old mate, with the guys being distracted, picks up a briefcase with $2 million worth of cards and decides to leave, which is, pretty damn brazen, and shows that these guys were, quite, astute with what it is they were trying to get and sort of knew how to play the game. You see stuff like this, at jewelry stores and stuff like that, where you've got people being distractions for the staff and all that kind of thing. But it's just one of those things, right, where it's just incredibly alarming, and it's just so brazen that it can happen, when there's all these people around. Yes, it's pretty empty, but, there's probably like 20 people in shot right now, and it's like they're still willing to be that brazen and go ahead and do it. And these guys, they believe it was predetermined and targeted, number one, because they knew what they were targeting and they sort of knew how to weasel their way in there. But he thinks they were basically, casing them out throughout the show. And there's some other things that he talks to in the post itself, where he says, here's the best footage I have at the moment. In this video, my team, the two African-American boys with the afros, which I believe is these two individuals here, were carefully distracted by the three people you see in the hat. So I'm assuming it's this guy, and then maybe these guys are involved as well. The man seen taking the case from under the table in the middle of the square of tables had been stacking chairs near the booth for over an hour, and we thought he worked there. These guys have been scoping us out all day after footage review and even went through a process of changing clothes. It was predetermined, targeted because they knew exactly which case to take, which contained a large portion of my inventory as photographed 2 posts before, which is what I showed you, a little bit earlier. So this is, a big deal. This is not something small. These guys clearly knew what they were doing, and it just shows how brazen people can actually be. So this post, even though I may have got a couple of the things wrong in terms of the people in the video itself, go check it out yourself. Go check out Neo Cards and Comics video, who did a really good job covering it today. You can see that his video's basically got 7,000 views already. And sort of see how you can help if you do see any of these cards pop up for sale. Now, the one thing that I'm, quite concerned about the whole situation is I'd be shocked if these guys try and sell these things within the slabs. I think what they're going to do is either try and take them to somebody unsuspecting, take them to a card store, which these idiots often do, and try and offload them at once, which is, usually a red flag. But what I think the outcome is actually going to be is that these things are going to be cracked out and sold raw, which is really bloody disappointing, because then it's going to be virtually impossible to track these things down. And, from an insurance perspective, I don't know what those guys have on their inventory, but I don't think it's going to be a payout for $2 million, which is, pretty sick when you think about it and how much this could impact somebody's life. And it's pretty sad to think about, if I'm being perfectly honest. So if you guys sort of know anything, reach out to Day Sports Cards on Instagram. He's more than happy to chat via the DMs based on what he's sort of been explaining to people in the comment section. But it's just one of those things where we sort of all need to band together and try and help someone out here. When you're thinking about what are some things people could be doing, some dealers at shows be doing, it's a few simple things. I think Neo talked about air tags in his video. Some of these companies that sell cases to store your cards in there have slots to store air tags and stuff like that. But again, I don't think, a thief in that instance is going to be keeping the case on them. I think they're going to be trying to dispose of as much as possible, as quickly as possible. But irrespective, that's, I think, a really good thing to do. Now, one thing that I think this might be a line in the sand for is card shows in general. I'm surprised that a lot of these bigger ones, especially for those that involve bigger dealers like this one, where they have millions of dollars of stock, is having, a more secure facility for these things to be stored. And maybe they do it at the National. I've not heard about it, but I know for things like watch conventions and jewelry conventions, they have, safes set aside for the people that are basically dealers at the show. And obviously jewelry and watches are going to be in values of a heck of a lot more than sports cards, but you've just seen there, $2 million is not chump change. And I'm wondering at what point we're going to see shows start offering safes and places of storage for dealers. And that becomes its own tricky situation. But, there's insurance policies involved and all that kind of stuff when these kinds of safes are used. So maybe something like that is also going to be supportive. But unfortunately, in this particular instance, I don't know if this is happening at the start of the show or the end of the show, but clearly you've got people packing up. So it's not like it's happened overnight, as an example. So it's just a really unfortunate situation, and just goes to, the old adage, you need to be very careful with what it is you're doing, and just being a bit more switched on. And it's one of those things that's also sad to sort of say, because the hobby is about helping each other out. So you sort of don't want to have your guard up all the time. It's like sort of sad to have to think like that, but you need to be judging people left, right, etc. at these bigger shows. And I'm a bit concerned about what we might see happen out at the National. I've talked before how people seem to be getting more and more desperate when it comes to stealing in this space and defrauding people and scamming people. And I've primarily put that down to, the economy is the easy answer. But when you look at the hobby over the last 3 to 4 years, we had really crazy values come in, and it's no, shock to say that people became over leveraged in order to buy the things they wanted. And because it's come so far down since, people are basically drowning in debt. They've got all these cards left on hand that aren't worth anything. And I've been saying it for a couple of years now. Because of that reason, you've got people more and more willing to scam and defraud people, which is, again, a really unfortunate thing to say, but it's just a reminder we need to be, on our toes. So if you haven't seen this, I'm, thankful that I was able to share it with you, but please reach out to Day Sports Cards and help out if you can. Go back through the Instagram post. I didn't show every page. Check every single photo. Maybe you see one of these things show up, and we sort of see what happens next. I'd assume, graders themselves are going to start deactivating some of these certs or flagging them as being stolen. But if you see anything like this show up, obviously if you're in the Dallas area, that's the most logical sense. But I would not be surprised if these things were already shipped out to a different state or country, or, also cracked out of those slabs by now, because, that's what people do in situations like this. And I said at the start of the video, this is probably the biggest theft we've seen at a card show. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it's certainly the biggest one in recent memory, and just goes to show that people are absolute scumbags, and you sort of can't be too careful even at, you know, an event like this. And some of you guys might be poking fun at the dealer for leaving things unattended like that, but you know, until you're in a real world situation like that, mistakes happen. People make mistakes, people make lapses in judgment, and like you saw, these guys talking to all members of staff all over and around the table clearly knew what they were doing, and this wasn't their first rodeo. So, you know, it is what it is. Reach out to Day Sports Cards if you have any information, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.